Welcome to Life Stories. Imagine this. You've spent your whole life chasing approval, meeting everyone else's expectations, doing everything by the book. But what happens when you finally stop and ask yourself, am I living for me or for them? For Maya, this question was the turning point in a battle between family loyalty and personal freedom. Her engagement party was supposed to be a celebration of love, but instead, it was a stage for judgment, whispers, and an unexpected entrance that would change everything. What happens when you can no longer ignore the voices that have shaped your life? And what does it take to stop living for everyone else? Stay with us as Maya's story unfolds and see how one bold moment can completely shatter expectations. Maya stepped into the glittering hall, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor, a rhythm she couldn't quite escape, even though her heart pounded with a different beat. The engagement party was in full swing, with crystal chandeliers reflecting the golden light and the clinking of champagne glasses filling the air. It was the kind of evening that was supposed to feel magical, a celebration of love, commitment, and the life she was supposed to lead. But as she glanced around at the sea of well-dressed guests, she felt an uncomfortable heat creep up her neck. Her mother, Priya, was already circulating, her laughter ringing through the crowd as she chatted with relatives Maya hadn't seen in years. The smiles were all painted on, like masks, so polished and perfect it was almost impossible to tell what they truly meant. And then there was her cousin, Dia, radiant and poised, standing at the center of it all. The picture-perfect Indian daughter everyone admired. Her fiancé, Armin, a handsome cardiac surgeon with Ivy League credentials, was by her side, checking every box in the family's book of expectations. Maya couldn't help but compare herself to the flawless image they projected. She hadn't exactly fit into the mold, and her parents had never let her forget it. "You look beautiful, Maya," Dia had whispered earlier, but the words felt hollow, as if Maya were some kind of outsider in her own family. Dia's family had never questioned her decisions, never doubted her choices, never made her feel like she was too much or too little. But Maya? She'd never been good enough in their eyes. Her gaze wandered to the empty seat next to her at the table, where she had told her parents Zaid, her fiancé, would sit. He hadn't arrived yet. There were whispers. No one ever understood why she didn't just choose someone like Armin, someone who would have been easier to love, easier to explain. "Where's your fiancé?" they'd ask, eyes scanning her as if looking for an answer they could accept. It was always the same questions, the same sideways glances, as though she were a disappointment in the eyes of everyone who mattered. Zayde had promised he'd be here by dinner, but he was busy, caught in a last-minute meeting. Maya had tried to explain, but all she got was an impatient sigh from her mother, a look that said, "Not again." But this time, Maya wasn't going to let them get to her. She wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of showing how hurt she was. Not tonight. Then came the moment. She was called to give her toast, something she hadn't prepared for. Yet somehow, she felt this unexpected weight fall on her chest. Everyone else had said their piece. Dia's friends, Armin's cousins, even Neil, her younger brother who had barely spoken to her in months. Maya stood, trying to steady herself, and looked out at the sea of faces that had never truly seen her, not the way she was. She swallowed, her throat dry. "I just want to say," she began, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest, "it's beautiful watching two people who are supported, celebrated, and believed in." She paused, taking a breath. "Not everyone gets that. If you do, hold on to it." There was polite applause, a few murmurs of agreement, but nothing beyond that. No one really cared about what she had to say. They were too busy pretending to be happy for Dia, too busy basking in the glow of a future that was neatly laid out for them. But then, the noise changed. A low, mechanical hum, almost imperceptible at first, became unmistakable. It was the sound of helicopter rotors cutting through the night. The room fell silent for a brief moment as the sound grew louder. Guests turned their heads toward the windows. Maya's heart raced, and then he appeared. Zaidi. He strode into the hall, his dark navy suit fitting him perfectly, a glint of gold from his watch catching the light as he moved. His hair was slightly windswept, and there was no denying the calm confidence in his step. "Sorry I'm late," he said with a grin, his voice calm yet carrying over the stunned silence. "Had to park the helicopter." A few people gasped. Maya felt a strange sense of triumph wash over her, mixed with disbelief. He had actually done it. He had walked in, not only proving her love was real, but showing them, showing all of them, that she had made it, despite their doubts. He walked over to Maya, kissing her forehead softly, his presence grounding her. "Did I miss your toast?" he asked, his voice low. "No," Maya said, her eyes meeting his, the weight of years of judgment slowly starting to lift. "You're right on time." The atmosphere had shifted, just like that. People who had once whispered and judged now eyed him with curiosity. Maya's mother, who had been laughing just moments before, stood frozen, her face a mixture of surprise and reluctant admiration. Her father, who had always treated Maya's choices as fleeting whims, now sized up Zadeh as if assessing a business partner. There was a flicker of respect there, something Maya hadn't seen before. It wasn't about the helicopter. It wasn't even about the spectacle of the entrance. It was about Zadeh showing up, and for the first time in her life, Maya wasn't invisible. She wasn't just the daughter who had failed to meet expectations. She was someone worthy of respect. But as the evening wore on, Maya couldn't ignore the small, nagging feeling deep inside. Yes, she had reclaimed her place, but the journey wasn't over. The questions were still there, hanging in the air. What would it take for her parents to truly understand her life? Would they ever accept her for who she was? She couldn't help but wonder if they would ever stop seeing her as a disappointment, even with all she had achieved. What does it take for someone to truly believe in you? Is it enough to prove your worth to yourself, or do you need validation from others? Maya looked across the room, feeling the eyes of her family on her. Was this just a momentary shift, or would things finally change for good? But as Zadeh pulled her closer later that night, she realized something. She was no longer waiting for approval. She was done pretending to be something she wasn't. The only approval she needed now was her own. And yet, as the night came to a close, one question lingered in her mind. Would her parents ever fully understand her choices, or would they always see her as someone who didn't fit into their carefully crafted world? The answer was coming, but not tonight. Maya couldn't sleep that night. The hotel room was quiet, save for the low hum of the air conditioning and the soft, distant sounds of traffic from the streets below. Zadeh had fallen asleep almost instantly, his steady breath a comfort beside her. But Maya lay wide awake, staring at the ceiling, the weight of everything pressing on her chest. It wasn't just her parents. It wasn't even the judgmental whispers at the party. It was something deeper, something she hadn't fully acknowledged until now. She had spent so much of her life trying to live up to expectations, her parents' expectations, society's expectations, even her own. But with Zadeh by her side, standing firm and confident in the face of everything, she realized something that chilled her to the bone. She wasn't sure if she had ever believed in herself. When had she stopped feeling like the dreamer, the passionate artist, the woman who broke free from the script? Somewhere along the way, she had become obsessed with proving herself to others, with showing them that she was more than just a failure. She had forgotten to ask herself what she wanted, what she needed. The thought made her stomach twist. The high she had felt earlier, when Zaid had walked in and shifted the atmosphere in the room, began to fade. She no longer felt the excitement of having won a battle. Now, it felt like a hollow victory, a hollow life. She turned to Zaid, his face softened in sleep, and the impulse to shake him awake passed through her. She wanted to talk to him, to ask him if he ever felt this way, but she couldn't bring herself to disturb his peaceful rest. Instead, she quietly slipped out of bed, pulled on her robe, and stepped out onto the balcony. The cool night air hit her like a slap, but she welcomed it. The city lights twinkled below, distant and impersonal. She breathed deeply, grounding herself in the moment. What am I running from? The question gnawed at her. Her parents had never truly believed in her. The entire world had doubted her, laughed at her choices. But wasn't that the reason she had fought so hard? To prove them wrong? But now, in the stillness of the night, Maya realized that she was still trying to prove something. To everyone but herself. She stared out at the distant skyline, the lines of the buildings cutting through the night, like jagged edges of a puzzle she could never quite fit together. The cold, empty feeling in her chest had grown, and she knew now that it wasn't just about her parents' disapproval or her struggle for validation. It was a deeper, more fundamental question. Was she truly living her life, or was she simply performing the role she thought she was supposed to play? She leaned on the railing, her fingers gripping it tightly, as though trying to hold on to something real. She needed to know the answer, but more than that, she needed to stop running from herself. A soft sound behind her made her turn. Zadie had woken up, his silhouette framed by the door. His voice was rough with sleep as he approached, his presence an anchor in the chaos of her thoughts. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle but concerned. Maya hesitated. It wasn't a question she had an easy answer to. She couldn't tell him the truth, not yet. She couldn't even tell herself. Instead, she smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just needed some air," she replied, her voice betraying the hollow weight she felt inside. Zadie stepped closer, reaching out to touch her shoulder. "Maya," he said, his tone soft but firm, "you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to carry this weight all by yourself. I'm here, every step of the way. You know that, right?" His words were comforting, but they felt distant, like they were meant for someone else. Someone who hadn't built walls around their heart, someone who hadn't spent years doubting everything they were. She wanted to tell him the truth. She wanted to confess her fear, her doubt, the nagging voice that told her she would never truly be enough. But something stopped her. It wasn't Zadie. He had always been her rock. It was her. "I know," she said quietly, "but it's not just about you and me, Zadie. It's about everything I've ever been told about who I'm supposed to be. And I don't know anymore if I've been living for them or for myself." The silence between them was heavy, a realization settling in the air. Zadie didn't say anything for a long time. He just stood there, his eyes soft, his hand gently resting on her back, grounding her in the moment. After a while, Maya took a deep breath and let it out slowly. The tension in her chest didn't vanish, but it eased, just enough to let her breathe again. "I don't know how to be free," she whispered. "I don't know what it means to live for me." Zadie turned her around gently, lifting her chin so their eyes met. "You're already free," he said quietly. "You just need to believe it." Her breath caught. The words hit her like a wave, drowning her in emotion she hadn't expected to feel. It wasn't just the weight of her parents' judgment or the expectations she had tried to shake off for years. It was the deep realization that she had always been her own prison. "I wish it were that easy," she murmured, the vulnerability she had been hiding now exposed. "But it feels like everything I've worked for, everything I've fought for, has been for someone else's approval. I can't just undo that." Zadie didn't let go. "You don't have to undo it. You just need to stop living for them. Maya, this is your life, your story. It's time to write it the way you want." She stood there, feeling the weight of his words sink in, a mixture of relief and fear washing over her. Zadie was right. She had been running her entire life, but for the first time, she felt the possibility of stopping, of choosing her own path, without the weight of anyone else's expectations. But just as she was about to say something, something shifted in the air, and a voice rang out from the hotel lobby. Maya's heart stopped. Is she really going to keep doing this? It was her mother's voice, raised in frustration, but Maya knew the words were meant for someone else. Her father was with her. Maya had never heard that tone directed at her before. Her mother's voice continued, sharp and cutting. "She's always been the disappointment, hasn't she? And now she thinks she can show us? I won't have it. This charade, it's too much." Maya's stomach turned. How far is too far in the pursuit of your own dreams? Can you ever truly silence the voices of those who've shaped your past? The room was too small, too tight. Maya's breath quickened, her pulse racing as she realized the confrontation she had been avoiding was about to happen. Could she finally confront her family, or would their judgment once again push her into a corner she had to escape? Maya turned to Zadie, her heart pounding with a new raw determination. The night was about to take a turn. What would she choose next? The next morning, Maya stood at the balcony of their hotel suite, the early sunlight spilling over the horizon. The city of Dubai was already bustling, alive with promise and ambition. Yet, Maya felt a strange stillness inside her, like a quiet before a storm. She knew something had shifted, but she wasn't sure whether it was in herself or in the world around her. Zadeh was still asleep in bed, his peaceful face contrasting sharply with the whirl of emotions swirling inside her. After the confrontation in the lobby, Maya had barely slept. The conversation she overheard between her parents echoed in her mind, sharp, bitter, and full of judgment. Her mother's voice was still fresh in her ears, accusing her of staging a charade, of pretending to be someone she wasn't. For the first time, Maya truly realized just how deeply rooted her family's expectations were. It wasn't just about her choices or her career. It was about the life they had planned for her, and they would never accept anything less. The sun rose higher, casting a warm glow over the city, but Maya felt colder than ever. It wasn't just the distance from her parents. It was the realization that no matter what she achieved, no matter how successful she became, they would never fully accept her unless she conformed to their vision of who she should be. She had fought so hard to break free, but now she was left wondering, had I really freed myself, or had I just been running away from the inevitable? She didn't hear Zadeh stir behind her until his voice cut through the silence. "You're up early," he said, his tone warm but soft. Maya turned around to face him, her heart swelling with conflicting emotions. Zadeh stood at the edge of the bed, rubbing his eyes as if he hadn't had a full night's sleep either. There was concern in his gaze, but Maya knew he was trying not to push too hard. He understood her better than anyone else. "I couldn't sleep," Maya admitted, the weight of the night's events settling over her like a heavy cloak. "I overheard them. My mom and dad, they don't get it, Zaid. They never will." Zadeh's expression softened, and he walked toward her, wrapping his arms around her in a comforting embrace. "You're not doing this for them, Maya. You're doing this for you. You've made it. You're here, standing tall. They can't take that away from you." Maya leaned into his warmth, but a part of her still felt conflicted. It wasn't just about her parents anymore. It was about her. She had been so focused on proving herself to others that she had almost forgotten to ask herself if she was truly happy, truly fulfilled. The truth hit her with the force of a tidal wave. What if I'm still seeking their approval? What if, deep down, she was still looking for validation from the people who had shaped her world? But then she thought of the life she had built with Zaid, of the late nights working on her branding consultancy, of the clients she had signed, of the freedom she had found in the world of design. She thought of the speeches she had given, the rooms she had stood in, and the success she had achieved without them. She had made it on her own, and that was enough. Zadeh pulled back slightly, looking at her with a knowing expression. "I know this isn't easy, Maya, but you've already taken the biggest step. You've let go. You don't need them to understand anymore. You've got everything you need right here." Maya nodded, but the knot in her stomach remained. She knew Zadie was right. He always had a way of seeing through her walls, of making her believe in herself. But the battle wasn't over. It wasn't just her parents who needed to change. It was her. She needed to let go of the past, of the chains that had held her captive for so long. And so, as the day wore on, Maya made a decision. She would confront her parents one last time, not for their approval, not for their love, but for herself. She needed to stop letting their opinions dictate the course of her life. That afternoon, Zadie and Maya met her parents in the hotel lobby before they flew back to California. Maya's heart raced as she walked toward them. Her mother standing with her arms crossed, her father's stern gaze unwavering. Maya, her mother began, her voice strained but not unkind, we've been thinking about everything. About you and Zadie. She hesitated, her eyes flicking to Zaid. I know we haven't been fair to you. We were just worried. We didn't understand. Maya held her breath, the weight of the moment settling over her. She glanced at Zaid, who stood quietly by her side, offering silent support. This was her moment, and she wouldn't let it slip away. You don't need to understand me, Mom, Maya said, her voice steady but full of emotion. I've spent my entire life trying to fit into your world, trying to meet your expectations, but I'm done. I don't need your approval anymore. I've built my life, I've made it my own, and I'm happy. There was silence for a long moment. Her mother's eyes filled with something Maya couldn't quite place, regret, maybe, or sorrow. But there was no judgment in her gaze anymore, no harsh words ready to be thrown. Her father stood still, his arms folded across his chest, but Maya could see the faintest flicker of something in his eyes. Pride, maybe? Or understanding? Maya exhaled slowly, feeling the last of her doubts slip away. She didn't need their validation. She didn't need anyone's validation. I'm proud of you, Maya, her father said softly, his voice rough. It wasn't a grand proclamation, but it was enough. More than enough. Maya's heart swelled with something that felt almost like release. She had waited so long for these words, but she realized now that the person she had been waiting to hear them from was herself. She stepped forward, reaching for Zaid's hand, and smiled at her parents, the tension in her chest easing. Thank you, she said quietly, but with finality. It means more than you know. As they said their goodbyes, Maya knew this was the last time she would seek their approval. The rest of her life was hers to live, and Zadie would be there beside her every step of the way. They weren't just building a future together, they were creating a future that was entirely their own. As she and Zadie walked out into the bright sunlight, Maya felt lighter than she had in years. She wasn't just running away from the past anymore. She was moving forward. And this time, she wasn't looking back. What do you think of Maya's decision to finally break free from her parents' expectations? Do you think it's ever truly possible to stop seeking approval from others? If you enjoyed this story, leave a 100 in the comments below. Let us know where you're watching from, and feel free to share this video with your friends. Thank you for tuning in to Life Stories.